my notion of a book launch had to do with having 20 global media cameras in the room and kind of a rollout with drums and trumpets, which this is not. So this is a rollout for you, and I hope that what I do here is appropriate to the occasion, because I'm really I'm a latecomer to this whole thing. But the core point is, here is a book that all of us are going to want to read, and hopefully a book which will be read much more widely than that, including, at least in certain chapters by assignment of the instructors, students. This is a book it's very timely. It's a little overdue because we've been thinking about this for a while, and the book took a long time to come to fruition. But it is a book about China's approach to soft power. Joseph Nye coined the term. The Chinese went around to all of us for years saying, please, what is this soft power? What does it mean? It's a little like responsible stakeholder. It was one of those terms coined by an American, and then the Chinese sent all their diplomats out and all their scholars out to ask the Americans what was meant by it. But in the case of soft power, the Chinese really bit very hard. They really leapt onto this thing. And whether it was the State Council Information Office or courses at Renmin University and other places, soft power became one of those things that everybody had to become aware of, and ultimately that China had to develop as its greater power, its so-called comprehensive national power, increased so very, very, very quickly. What is in this volume, which I've not had a chance to read yet, is from the foreword, which I did read, the introduction, which I did read, a series of very well crafted essays on the Chinese debate itself on what soft power really is, and then on the application of soft power, or the attempt to apply the concepts of soft power to China's realities around the world, both domestically and internationally. And most of us, there are huge delicacies here. The United States, or at least some segments of American opinion, are obsessed now with what the Chinese, these Americans call influence operations. And many of you are familiar with that. Larry Diamond and Orville Schell wrote out a study about a year ago through the Hoover Institution Press on Chinese influence operations in the United States, which became the kind of locus classicus on the subject because it was very well produced and very well packaged and very well sold in the political and the media communities. But it's out there in spades. Everybody, and I keep saying everybody, there's a great concern in the United States now about the ways, subtle and unsubtle, that China seeks to intrude into the thinking processes, into the brains of people in other countries in order to get those people. It's sort of like, in some ways it's a very Confucian notion that instead of forcing people to do things, you get them to come your way as the grass, as the wind bends the grass toward you. But the point is that the Chinese don't give us any help on this. The concern over influence operations reflects something very real about the way China approaches the world today. And from the Chinese standpoint, it seems to me, a lot of what China does is animated by their internalization of the conception of soft power that Joseph Nye created. Stan Rosen, I think it's Stan, one of the early writers in the book, raises the question of whether soft power is just a kind of a passing fancy, and that as the Chinese get to the point where they've got the economic and the military power to tell people what to do, they can get to the point that is encapsulated in American verbiage by the famous American political phrase, get over it. In other words, it doesn't matter whether we make nice to you or not, we got the money, we got the arms, we got the markets, get over it. In which case soft power may turn out to have been a sort of a phase in the development of China's power. But just to stop here, I hope that Stan and Ying will say a few words about the book. It really is, I mean, we get a lot of books. I'm old enough to regret that the print is so small. I would be, because it's not as bad as the Journal of Contemporary China, which is absolutely blinding to readers of my age. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a serious read. This is not a casual kind of a thing, but it should be at the forefront of reading lists for people interested in the way a huge and powerful nation seeks to define the ways in which it expresses itself to audiences around the world, because that's pretty much what all of you in some way or other touch on here, even tossing aside for a minute the notion of pure creation as opposed to a creation aimed at a specific audience result. Most of you are involved in this communicating from yourselves to others on questions that really matter, and that is certainly what Joseph and I had in mind when he was patting America on the back, and what the Chinese have been working very hard on. The irony is, I mean, here we're looking at it today. We're looking at it today. Here we are, sitting here with the plague spreading around us, emanating out of China. I mean, what happens to soft power when the world discovers yet again that the infectious diseases that threaten civilization are emanating from the villages and the farms and the backyard pigsties and the markets that sell rats and lizards and wild animals in China? The attempt at soft power that the Chinese have worked so hard on, and public diplomacy being a part of that, is suddenly called into question by the visceral, life-threatening messages that seem to be emanating from China as this virus spreads out across the world. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But the book really is a good one. I mean, even just a glance at various chapters. And I hope you will read it. I hope you'll use it with your students, and I hope you will introduce it into dialogues that transcend China, because of course soft power is something which is not confined to the United States or China. In fact, 10 years from now, the whole term may be gone. We may never be, terms of art come and go, and soft power may actually have outstayed its welcome already. But at this moment, it's really a great book. I don't know whether that constitutes a rollout or not, because I don't know what a rollout is or a book launch. But Ying and Stan are here, and it'd be great if you have a few minutes, if each of you could comment a little on the enterprise and what you think its purposes and effects will be, and maybe even a little bit about the mountains and the obstacles you had to overcome to get this book together.
I think I'll let Stan do the talk.
Oh,
Stan.
Ying's deferring to Stan. You want to grab this microphone? So come up. That was entirely off the top, by the way, and if it was stupid, please forgive me.
How are you, Mr. Pitchman? No. I'm going to talk about the genesis of the book. It took too long, 6 years, I think. So,
5 years.
Just two quick things, partly related to the book, I think. One is that in response to your point earlier about the U.S. versus other countries, what we tried to do is get as many chapters written by people in different areas of the world. Latin America. I ended up co-authoring the Africa chapter for a long story about that one.
Done the narrative.
Yeah. But so we did try to get not just an American perspective. One of the chapters I wrote was looking at soft power in the era of Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, contrasting American and Chinese soft power, and whether the obvious decline in American soft power is benefiting China. Is it a zero-sum game or not? But the other point I wanted to make is, because I just got something in email today, and it relates to a lot of the discussion on fake news, and this is from Tangle and Cole, which you would know, but nobody else probably would.
Actually, I never did try Tangle.
Yeah, but it's one of these. Bob and I are on a listserv on Chinese politics.
It's the China Ain't It Awful listserv.
Yeah. But he and I are on a more established listserv with about 2,000 diplomats and journalists and scholars and so on. Ying is on that list as well. But this thing on the panel call, I won't mention the name of the person, I'll tell you privately later, but somebody posted something about how the coronavirus is actually originating at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is 2 miles away from that wet market in Wuhan. And in fact, this is from a conspiracy website. Steve Bannon is involved in this. That the Chinese Communist Party is spreading the virus to basically restore their legitimacy in some way. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but it's really a strange kind of thing which is making the rounds. And this is an example, in effect, of diminishing China's soft power among certain communities. But that thing is really, as you say, very, very dangerous, and it's not just a U.S. issue at that point, because there's plenty of conspiracy theorists in Europe as well.
Here in Hong Kong?
Yeah.
Just 3 days ago, the same rumor getting around on
Yeah,
our
exactly.
website.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very scary. Ying, do you want to say?
Oh, it's fine. I think I've said enough already.
Well, thank you, Stan. The bottom line is go to your local college bookstore and say, do you have soft power with Chinese characteristics? And when they say no, you say, well, you better get it now because it's...
I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. You don't really care for music, do ya? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Well, your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty and the moonlight overthrew ya. Well, she tied you to her kitchen chair, she broke your throne and cut your hair, and from your lips she drew hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Baby, I've been here before. I've seen this room and I've walked the floor. Used to live alone before I knew ya. But I've seen your flag on the marble arch. Our love is not a victory march. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Maybe there's a God above, but all I've ever